Welcome to the fourth session of our series, the R.E.A.L method, R-E-A-L, of the Wisdom Project, the method that we use in Wisdom by Design. And as I have said in the previous conversations, the Wisdom by Design is a strategy using design to design ourselves as wiser reasoners, as wiser people. And besides the approach, the design approach, we have this method, R-E.A.L, that I'm explaining here and that I will finish explaining today, covering the A and the L of the R.E.A.L method, the artificial and the liminal. And then next, I'm recording currently with two other people that you know from the Wisdom Project cohorts, Melissa Duter, who is a psychiatrist, and Clayton Nyakana, who is a project manager and engineer. I'm recording the Wisening series, which I hope to finish in a month, and then I'll be doing the tools. So in total, the whole Wisdom Project will have about 20 videos of 1 hour each, where people can just go and see what is that we are doing and then do their own Wisdom Project. That's my hope. So I'm gonna now start with a small review. We covered ritual and how in every culture, rituals are experiences, collective experiences that tend to produce insight and transformation. That's something we do at the Wisdom Project. That ritual because of what? For engagement. And then I discussed when I presented the E of the R.E.A.L method, that now it is understood that the mind is not just the brain by itself functioning, spitting ideas and sensations and emotions, but the brain is embodied. And the idea that the mind is embodied has also as a theme the idea that it's enacted, that what we bring to the world is what we have learned before, that the way we see the world is colored by our biology and the previous experiences we have had, that besides being enacted, that's the meaning of enaction, the mind is also embedded because we function in a niche, we function in a community where I can go to the library and I don't get lost because I know that the library is going to be organized at a certain way and I know how to navigate it. But if somebody who has never been at a library comes, they won't understand it. I remember, I think I mentioned that, being in Albania, where people until 20 years ago couldn't have cars. So people they are cars now, but they are not so used to drive. And I was surprised that I couldn't make taxi drivers to read maps. I wanted to go to a particular place and they didn't know how to take me there because they didn't know they didn't know how to read a map. That was very surprising. And it happened to me many times. Fortunately, with Google Translate, I was able to learn how to write and pronounce all the things I wanted to do in Albania, and I got to go many places just by using Google Translate. So embedded, the mind is embedded and you have to know how to navigate the library or a map to function in the world. And finally, the mind is also extended, it's distributed. It's not only what is in my brain, it's what is in the community that I talk to. Like you two, we are learning from each other and we are being transformed by being together. So the idea that the mind is something that we live in isolation, what is in isolation is the biology to a certain extent, but not the mind. The mind is a process of intersubjectivity between humans. So that's why some people can have a very close life to new ideas, like some people who are very religious in certain societies, and some people can be the opposite. And if I show you two individuals and I tell one of them is very liberal and the other one is extremely religious, and I give you two countries, you would know perhaps with certain amount of certainty to which country the liberal belongs to and to which country the very conservative religious person belongs to. even not only a country, but even counties in America. So the mind is that. So we covered that engagement, and today we're going to talk about the artificial and the liminal. The artificial, there is a parable that is very famous, or very well known among people who practice cognitive science, the science of the mind, and that's the parable of the ant. Once upon a time, a scientist was looking at an ant walking on the sand, and the scientist said, oh, anybody could say that this ant has so much knowledge in her head when it said that it's able to navigate this complicated terrain. But in reality, the ant has a very simple mechanism of orienting itself, and the complexity comes from the environment. So the invitation he had with this so-called parable, that story, is to say, we never think of ourselves as navigating the artificial, the numerous amount of things that we have created that make us who we are, the artifacts. We wake up, go to the bathroom, use the toilet, flush it, artificial. Brush our teeth, artificial. Brew the coffee, artificial. Make a phone call, check the news on the smartphone, artificial. And even when we say good morning, when we arrive to the workplace or in our first daily conversation, we are using something that was inherited by many countless of interaction between humans that constitute the language that we speak. So we are, in some measure, an artificial thing. We carry all those artifacts with us. And what we do in the Wisdom Project is to first recognize that because we live in a world that is artificially created by humans, that there is something important that we do that I'm calling design, and other people are calling design, is that we design that world of the artificial. I could have any type of toothbrush. I could just stop brushing my teeth. I could just drink tea instead of coffee, or walk to work instead of taking the tea, or driving my car. So we make an enormous amount of choices to design our niche. When I see during the spring, the birds that arrived to our courtyard, and they are starting to build their nest, they are building their house, their niche. When I see the two, what's the name of them, Thomas? Winnie and the two geese that come every year to our pond across the street, and everybody in Winchester, oh, yeah, they're here, they came. And they spend a few weeks building a huge nest on the middle of the lake, and people come and take pictures. And then they put the eggs there, and then they have the little chicks, and then they teach them how to swim, and everybody observes the whole process. That type of niche is what we do too with our kids. We're going to be grandparents soon, and we are preparing a niche, and I'm taking so much pain. I went to bed yesterday very late, just buying things for a party that I'm organizing for my son and his wife, a baby shower that we do here in America. And I'm asking myself, why is this so important? And it's so important because I am preparing unconsciously a niche for Eli Steven, the baby who is supposed to be born in 2.5 months. So the parable of the scientist, Herbert Simon, about the ant has been, he wrote that paper I think it was in the 80s, but then in 1996, he wrote a book called The Science of the Artificial. And he was claiming, please, people, let's just focus on what is that we do that is different. Stop, we keep comparing us, what is the intelligence of a dog, the intelligence of a bird, the intelligence of a chimpanzee, but just focusing what is that humans do when they create those niches, when they create the artificials, he claimed. And even though that was in 1996, so many years ago, it's only now that people are taking seriously the science of design. And I am one of the people who are taking it seriously by saying, yes, we can design our way of being in the world. Why? Because we can choose the artifacts. We can choose the tools that can transform the way we are in the world. And because the mind is embedded and extended and enacted, we have that power to engage with the tools that can create a new way of being in the world. In this particular case of the Wisdom Project, a wiser way of being. Why? Because we are confronted more and more with wicked problems that are multidimensional and very difficult to solve. And the only way to solve them is using design, meaning starting little by little, locally, trying many things, stopping, observing the way that we raise a child, or the way we develop a recipe, or the way we write an essay. Incrementally, interactively, until we can integrate either the food or the child or whatever into the wider community. How that sounds vis-a-vis what is the artificial, and why I'm taking seriously the word artificial, because it's what humans do, and not thinking that, oh, artificial is bad because it's opposed to natural.
I mean, I heard you talking. I can just think that anything we have it's an extension of ours. So those are the artifacts. The car. If I want to go from point A to point B, the car becomes my extended surrounding. But these are the artifacts that I have built, or the humans have built, for me to go point A to point B. I heard you talking. I'm thinking space capsule, the astronaut with the artifacts that in order to navigate, or the airline pilot, to that fact. So I do resonate with the idea of the artifact, and as a human, we're building these artificial worlds all the time.
And becoming them. I am always so curious that, not challenging it, but we say, oh, she's a pianist, or he's a pilot, but she's not playing the piano, he's not flying an airplane, but that identity of being able to play the piano, or being able to write or drive the airplane, or being able to write a book, oh, he's a writer. We identify the person with that activity, that niche that the person is capable of functioning within. You see, is that person, is like saying this person can swim in the world of airplane navigation. This person can swim and dance in the world of piano playing, etc. How many artifacts? Well, there are so many, like the chair where we are sitting is a concrete artifact that has been perfected through design for ages, because we already have the need to sit. But there are other type of artifacts which are what makes us the type of biological beings that we are. And those artifacts have received many names, and the name that I like using here in the Wisdom Project is mindware, wear for the mind, like your headphones, but invisible. Because Daniel, you recently went to South America, and without the practice of Spanish that you have gone through your life, your experience would have been totally different without a mindware called Spanish speaking. Can you say something about that? And also about that, the music, salsa dancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like being able to speak the language of the locals allowed me to immerse myself in their culture. Like that was the best part. Like one of the things that I like the most, and this is complete personal, but like the way people interact with each other is completely different than the way people interact with each other here in America, at least what I'm accustomed to.
Speaking of, can I ask you please to speak a little slower?
Yeah, sure, of course. It was really, it was surprising, but I really appreciated how, like, the difference between people interacted in Colombia versus here in America. I think one of the biggest differences was how or that identity matters less. And it's exactly the thing that you were just saying about like someone who's we call someone a pilot just because they have the ability to fly a plane, right? So we categorize personalities in ways that they're useful to us or to society, right? In you know, the characteristics of a personality, like so this person is funny, right? This is a funny person because they're able to make humorous comments. They make us laugh. It makes us feel good, right? That's why we call them funny, and then that becomes part of them. So, and this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to make a comment about difference in interaction. People in Colombia, to my noticing, value identity a lot less. Like at least in America, people my age, you know, you are automatically put into a subgroup, some kind of niche based on what you're wearing, how you talk, you know, your social class, of course, your race, your accent, everything, obviously. But it's really rigid here, and I don't like that at all. So going to Colombia and like being able to just completely like flow with what I want to be, like be somewhat different every day. And it's I say somewhat different because in America you have to be someone, you know, from my perspective, of course. I don't want to make that general claim. But yeah, in Colombia it was really cool to just not have to think about that and just, you know, be able to just share what I want to without being worried about or even thinking about, oh, what am I presenting here? Like what kind of person am I showing myself to be? Just like, you know, just like do whatever you want, be a good person, obviously. But you know, that was really great. And for salsa, I've always loved salsa. And that kind of got me really into Spanish, but I'm not sure what did you want me to share about the music? I don't see how, I mean,
No, that I saw the videos that you sent, and I could see how much fun you had, how integrated you felt in the culture. And it's like all your life, you're being prepared by your grandmother, by your parents, by your uncle and aunts, by the whole family, because you were born in the Boston area, to go there and feel it like it's home.
That's true. And, you know, we always played Spanish music at parties, right? So I always heard it. And I guess I internalized it in some way, but I didn't actually listen to it until just 2 years ago. So, you know, that got me into it. And then going to Colombia and being able to like dance and like be in the environment where people are dancing to that kind of music, which I've only seen in a closed, you know, party with my family, people I know, was really cool. Like, you know, dancing and music is like, it's an art, obviously, but when you're in an environment where everybody's dancing, you know, you enter that niche of the music. And you know, you do what you're supposed to do when there's a party and people dancing. So that is something that I had never experienced or like known what it was about. Like I never experienced the joy of dancing or like, you know, what it's like to try to express yourself while dancing, right? I had known Spanish music a little bit and then I got more into it. But like that all led up to me going into like a club or a salsa bar and just like having so much fun trying to learn how to do these things and like, you know, slowly getting better at it. And then like dancing with my grandmother, like having fun with it. Whereas like my first day in Colombia, I had no idea what I was doing, right? I was like trying to dance salsa, like, you know, doing the steps, you know, getting taught. But as I did it more and more, like I really experienced the joy in it. So yeah, that was awesome. For
Okay,
sure.
so I'm glad that we combined the two topics, the artificial and the liminal, because your being raised in a Latino family among us, as our nephew and as the grandchild of Maria, my mom, and Norma, your other grandmother, you are used to the niche we have constructed here for you, an American niche, an USA Eastern USA niche, and then going there, I was expecting to see a liminal experience, meaning You would have to reevaluate, and I'm not saying that you have already done it. You would have to reevaluate who you are, who you were, and who you want to be. Because it felt like home, because we made it for you, the 20 years of age that you have been with us, we carried that way of being in the world with us for you. That's why you went there. And I bet I can say you go to any other country, India or China, even though it could be marvelous, would never feel like it felt.
Of course.
Because it's like I'm landing home. And when I travel for work, that I have gone to different countries in Latin America, it's just, I don't want to come back, because there is nothing, I wouldn't say better on the people that I meet. It's just this familiarity. It's like when a bird is separated from its species in the first few critical weeks of life, the bird will learn to sing the melody of its species, but always with an accent. So that familiarity, that contrast is for me an important way of presenting what I called, or not me, what the anthropologists call the liminal, going into a new space. Because you now know that you have something that you had an idea but never experienced. So the invitation now that you came back is, who are you going to be now? And that's what is the liminal. Are you gonna go and move to South America? Perhaps not. Are you gonna, so basically it's like when you said that you had internalized, incorporated rigid expectations about identity that you feel are the expectations of our American culture. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to come back to that, or are you going to continue the journey? That's the liminal. That's a wonderful example for the liminal.
So the liminal are the questions that you're asking yourself?
In
Or the situation?
In anthropology, the liminal is that space where the priest or the shaman, the person who is doing a ritual to invoke healing or to invoke the transformation from a young person to an adult male, or the same for the girl. The person who is doing the ceremony is guiding the participant in the ceremony through a change, a rite of passage. And when the person is not yet there, but has abandoned the previous self, that space between abandoning the previous self and moving to the next without really knowing how it's gonna look like is the liminal.
Okay, so the way you explained it now, I see it more like the point of no return. When you're right in the middle.
Yeah.
You go
Like
back or go forward.
When you and I decided to sell everything, close our businesses, and come to Boston. Perhaps, I don't know when that happened to you, but for me, it was almost immediately after I landed here. I couldn't go back. You remember all the friends who made fun of us that we were leaving? We will see you two here in a year, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
okay, but can you go back again to the art? The A is it artificial or artifact in the real?
Engagement with artifacts or with the artificial, with artificiality, acknowledging, because it's so much who we are, even the language is we are blinded to it. So the method is ritual, creating a ritual to engage with artificiality, with the artificial, but now with a different purpose. It's not using my toothbrush because I want to clear my teeth. I am using this particular tool because I want to enter into a transformational space, into liminality. So the tool could be the mind tool. The mindware could be a trip to South America, like the one you went with your family, Daniel, for the first time in your life. That opened you to a new perspective in life. So he comes back. What am I going to be doing now? I'm going to be the same with an identity that I created like this based on what you understand that Americans do, or are you going to have that flexibility, fluidity, and flow that you experience there? Or are you going to be irritated like Thomas and myself, who sometimes the flow and the fluidity of Latin America sometimes get in our nerves. You know, like I'm working with a collaborator and he said, Iris, what? Why are you so patient? Why are you so responsible? Because if I say I'm going to be there at 7 a.m. for a meeting, I am there at 7 a.m. for a meeting. So I have lost some of that fluidity, informality that was so characteristic of me in the past. I was always responsible, but you know.
Right, let's bring it back to the R.E.A.L model.
Okay, so so the R.E.A.L model says that yes, you use different artifacts, you interact incrementally, repeatedly with a particular artifact or sets of artifacts until you experience liminality, until they take you to a new way of being in the world. Example, what is that Buddha did when he abandoned, he was I think 28 or 29 years old. He abandoned his wife, his child, all the riches, the palace, all the life of not worrying about anything. Why? Because he wanted to use particular tools that were being used by other monastic individuals to reach what is called enlightenment. And, you know, he did the work with artifacts that leads to liminality. Another character, Jesus in the desert. Remember the 40 days that he went to the desert? And the story tells us that he was tempted a few times by the devil, you know, and no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make the sacrifice. He was pursuing the liminal. How? By going into the desert to fast and meditate, etc. Socrates, another sage of another well-known sage. The story says that he used to stand in Athens, where they held meetings, for 3 hours, standing on one foot, resting part of his upper back on a column without moving, as an art of developing temperance, developing resilience. So there are many tools that people use. The Stoic movement, they use a series of exercises and tools to make themselves different, to function in the world differently. And the pianist of the story, what is the tool that she has to use? Practicing 10 hours a day for at least 10 to 12 years to be able to give a concert and be recognized as a powerful. Using the artificial to pursue the liminal. And why am I calling it the liminal and not to pursue transformation? I don't know, transformation could be good or bad, just to explore and open our eyes to a space that perhaps we don't want to go in yet, or perhaps we do. Like Daniel experienced that change. Who does he want to be now after that experience? Perhaps he doesn't know. So he's going to stay for a while in the liminal. That's what I chose. And also it's good, R.E.A.L, R-E.A.L. No?
It makes sense though. Like the liminal is the most uncomfortable part because you're unsure of everything. But like after you're, that makes sense for sure.
And when I do the Wisdom Project 7 weeks workshop, I use the liminal to start with aspiration. Let's aspire to be wise. And then we started visiting examples and stories of Buddha, Socrates, Jesus, King Solomon, etc. But also examples of, I aspire to be a mother. I aspire to be a dancer. I aspire to speak good English. I aspire to write a book. So it's a process of taking everything that we have and focusing it on a goal. In the particular case of the Wisdom Project, we focus on a project that is dear to the heart of the person participating in the course. And the criterion to choose the project is that it has to be wicked, in the sense that even if it seems simple, like having a different relationship with my mother-in-law, that's my favorite example, it's not simple. There are multiple dimensions, so it's still a wicked problem. Or if it's address political polarization in my own family where it exists, it's a complex problem that has many facets. Therefore, we have to approach it with design, with a design mentality. How? Play with different tools, different mind tools, which are part of the artificial because they were created by scientists, most of them.
Great.
At this stage, you could, if you want, to paraphrase, imagine that you that we are either doing a dialogue like we always do in private, a mindful conversation that we call it, or that you are telling a friend about the R.E.A.L method. What would you say?
If I'm trying to explain to my friend what the R.E.A.L method is,
or how have you used it in the Wisdom Project?
In the Wisdom Project, okay.
Or since, because you have been using it
Right.
in your life.
Okay, well, first I'll say how I understand the R.E.A.L method is, we always want to improve, right? So we have problems, many of them are complex, and the idea is you have to reach a liminal space in order to change, right? In the liminal space, you do all the changing, but you have to reach there first. In order to reach there, you have to find an artifact that is directly correlated to the goal that you want to reach, right? So for example, someone that wants to learn a new language, they can either pick up a book in that language or they can hire a teacher. Those are both artifacts in order to reach the liminal space. However, one is much more efficient, right? A teacher is going to be much, much better. So how I used it, so I'll use my Wisdom Project example, I guess. I wanted to become a person that's more responsible, more resourceful, and resilient. So, and that's very contextual to what my situation was. But essentially, what I did was I, became very introspective because the Wisdom Project forced me to do that. And I began to think about, what is the actual transformation that I want? I tried to imagine the person that I would be. And that's very difficult, obviously, to, try to imagine what it would be like to be that kind of person that was resourceful, resilient, and
responsible.
Responsible, thank you. In the way that I imagined, right? So I kept trying, and just in so many words, eventually, after trying so many times and trying to create that imaginal person so many times, with the tools, of course, in between, I eventually came much closer to my goal of the person I wanted to be, using those artifacts.
Yeah, the imaginal is the distinction we make between the imaginary and the imaginal. And again, like design, we don't respect design enough, and we don't respect imagination enough. So imagination, to be respected, should be called imaginal, and there is literature about that because it's sacred. the person you want to become is sacred for you. It's very important. There is a book that I love called Imaginal Love. We experience love for that imagine of the person we want to create, we want to revere. So that's what you did to achieve a transformation. And what I would say that you missed in the explanation of how you have used the R.E.A.L method in your life is the part of ritual. Because when we do the Wisdom Project workshops, and you did it twice, we never talk about ritual. I never said that. I never used that word. That this is now that we're doing like a intellectual trip over the Wisdom Project, very practical experience. So what do you think about ritual? Why ritual engagement with artifacts or with artificiality in pursuit of the liminal is important, the ritual part?
Yeah, I definitely missed that part. So that's huge, definitely important. And the reason it was so important for me personally was, first of all, just prior to what I want, my point, I want to say that the ritual of the Wisdom Project was for sure sacred, and that came up so many times in the discussions, in the moments where someone said something and everybody connected, or in the moment that everybody was saying something like about the topic, and sharing all those in perspectives about what does wonder feel like. That's the classic example. But yeah, like those rituals were for sure rituals. Like you could feel it was not just a meeting. But anyway, the reason it was so important, essential to reaching the liminal space was because obviously, doing something continuously, whether it's every week or every month, forces you, you're forcing yourself to enter into whatever it is, learn about something or engage in something. So when you force yourself to do it, you're obviously going to improve, right? No matter, you obviously have to put effort in, but if you force yourself to do it, you're going to improve. So I can remember many times that it was like an hour before the Wisdom Project, and I was like, oh, I don't want to enter this meeting. Like, I don't want to put myself through this because it forces myself to change, right? Like I'm forcing myself to change, and change is always uncomfortable. So like an hour before, I was always like, oh, I don't want to do this, dreading it a little bit. But as soon as like at 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, after my anxiety went, I like entered the flow of the ritual, and it was awesome. Like I would always learn something. And that's what made it so awesome, because even though I knew, or even though I felt like I didn't want to do it, I knew that this was essential for me to change as a person. That's really what I wanted to do over the short-term discomfort, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we never spoke. You didn't introduce the word ritual when you explained your experience of the R.E.A.L method. And when we were doing also the workshop, I never used the word ritual, but everything was created to be a ritual. Why? Because it was created to generate flow. That state where we feel so comfortable that we are willing to explore the boundaries of our identity. And that's what happened in those 7 sessions of 2 hours in which we met. Expand the boundaries of who we were by inviting other people to enter into our social, psychological space. And that's what changed us. The tools and the community.
I mean, just kind of listening to all of this here, thought came to mind, and it's a slogan, and I think you're welcome to use it. Action is real. And where do I draw from that? Is everything we do, be it in the office, be it at home, on a personal level, on a community level, all that action, if you really look at it, you can break it down into a ritual, the experience with the artificial that's around them, in order to enter into a space to make a decision to go forward or back. So with that, I think everything we do also in the Wisdom Project, really, I mean, it's kind of taking different actions in order to create a new or make a change or whatever it is. So very interesting. So like I said, feel free to
And
Used to
that's why
slogan.
it works. That's why it works, because we do it so much every day. We have done it throughout all our lives, that now to do it on purpose together in a small community that I call a Wisdom Project cohort, together we are seeing how the process works. And we are taking different artifacts, the different tools, what we learned from Buddha and Jesus and Socrates, plus the psychologists of the 20th century and the 21st century, and we use and play with these tools to see if we can expand the boundaries of our niche. The thinking thing that we are. Because if something that we humans do is to create thingness, to create things, a political position, a religious belief, a style of cooking. We create things. We are thingness. If I can allow myself that word, is from a philosopher. And I don't want to go into philosophy, but it's from a philosopher and from a cognitive scientist. In an anthropologist called Malufouris, that's what he studies: archaeology and the archaeological record, the history of humanity, and what he sees is humans creating things that then have certain nature. A week ago, I was working with my colleague Michael Mascolo, and basically, he was teaching me how to code developmental data, the data of the Wisdom Project participants who accepted to participate on a research study. And we were developing a code, but because that's not what I do for work, he does it. Basically, I was learning from him. And then suddenly, what we did became like a template that I could use, like a physical template that I could use, like some lenses that I could use, and then look at the data. In the data, the code was red, blue, italics, a very weird font. And basically, I'm reading the paragraph, and the words are jumping into my eye, looking for red or blue or weird font, or basically reacting with me, with my reading, with my new understanding, since I created the code. I think it would require a few months before I can approach the same piece of data without those lenses that I developed with the thing that Michael and I created. And that's what we humans do. The niche of the ant is very limited compared with the niche that my family, we are all creating for our grandson who is coming in 2 months. The niche that your family created for you, Danielle, that gave you that very tangible experience in Latin America. So we have the concrete objects, the things that humans create. We like to think of humans, and I said it at the beginning, not so much as Homo sapiens, but Homo faber, the hominid who does things in the world. We like to think of humanity engagement with the world, not as only autopoietic, which is the current term in the science of the mind, that biological entities self-create, self-poiesis create, self-create all the time, regenerating the cells all the time. But humans are allopoietic, meaning humans create things outside themselves. So that's the approach that we are taking here. And the things that we create, when they impact what we call the mind, could use one level of information, which is the simplest one. When I see a clock, oh, it's 7 p.m. Therefore, I'm going to take an action. I'm going to record this session. Or when I look at my notebook, let's see, I'm supposed to have an appointment. Or when I look at a street sign, oh, I cannot go right in this particular interception. But there are other type of mental artifacts that have a powerful effect because they invite recurrent interaction. I'm just looking for the examples on my notes. I apologize, I lost them. Okay. When I go to the supermarket and I write when I go to the supermarket and I write a shopping list, when it's Monday morning and I do a to-do list, when I create a list of my contacts to see what to do next, that's a second level, a more sophisticated level of interaction with a mental artifact. It's not only looking at the clock, the compass, the road sign. It's a little more complex when I do the to-do list. I'm planning to act in the world in a certain way. But the third level, the more complex level that creates interactive, incremental, and interactive integration is when I write an essay. Because I write the essay and I rest, and then I go back and I read the essay and I'm changed by it. When I'm writing a book, I start writing the chapters. I spoke today with my friend Carlota, who was struggling so much. Last time we talked about 3 weeks ago, she thought she was going to abandon the idea of writing another book. And today she said, oh, I can see the light. I can see I'm almost at the top of the mountain. She couldn't stop talking. And I called her for a short conversation. And she was so excited because what? Going back over and over and over, visiting the material, you get transformed. And that type of reciprocal causation, I cause the book to be because I'm writing it, and the book causes me to be different because I'm impacted by my writing. I cause the piece of music because I'm composing, but the piece of music changes me as a composer. That type of reciprocal causation is what we are looking here with the R.E.A.L method, with the ritual, with the artifacts, with the pursuit of the idea of developing wise reasoning. There is a word that I forgot the name of the writer, but John Vervaeke likes to mention him. Reciprocal opening. That's what we do. We visit something and we get transformed. We transform what we are writing, in this case the book, but we are also transformed by the book in a process of reciprocal causation. And that's what we are looking at the Wisdom Project. Once you have learned to use the particular mind tools or mindware of artifacts of the Wisdom Project to address the challenge of the current project, you will then be able to apply those tools or mindware into any project that appears in your life in a continuous process of reciprocal causation, more sophisticated than a clock or a compass or a notebook, the process by which humans create ourselves, doing things in the world. Any comments about that?
Not at this time for me. I mean, very well explained.
So having said that, I covered the topic of the artificial, the artifacts, and the topic of liminality of the R.E.A.L method. And I thank you, Thomas and Danielle, for being with me and helping me think things through, helping me make the R.E.A.L method a thing, to give it thingness.
It was a pleasure being here and being able to help you.
It was nice to be here. Thank you. Before we end, can you give me some more examples, please, of reciprocal artifacts that give reciprocal opening like that? I was just thinking sports are one. But what else? What else is there besides writing? Because
well, the collaboration with my colleague Michael Mascolo, the collaboration with the colleagues that I'm meeting through my presentation with Vervaeke, it was almost a year ago. but they invited me to a conference and I was one of the presenters at the conference. And then I have been meeting people. And tomorrow I have a meeting that is very important for me because one of these colleagues that I invited is putting together a bunch of people working in similar arenas. I'm working on wisdom, but somebody else is working on happiness. Somebody else is working on morality. Somebody else is working on conflict resolution, but we are thinking from the same point of view, and just understanding this is very transformational. That's my example. And also, the Wisdom Project has done something for me that is almost weird to acknowledge, but because since I practice mindfulness meditation, I have bubbles of insight. That's the goal of doing meditation. You know, you have insights, little moments of mini enlightenment. And I'm having them more and more. And I'm having them, I would say, with courage, because I am, by the fact that I'm talking with those people, that I'm talking with you too, that I'm talking with Melissa and Clayton in the other series, that I'm being invited to articulate the thing that I think I believe, those moments of insight are multiplying themselves. And they are multiplying themselves in a way that is not always pleasant, because that's why I'm saying it's like I'm becoming more courageous. Perhaps before they were hiding. Oh, I won't tell Iris that she has this bad little thing on her being in the world. And the other day, it's something stupid. I went to the bank. I couldn't find my debit card. Thomas, don't get mad. I couldn't find my debit card. And I said, let's solve this problem. I went into the bank. I lost my debit card. Can you cancel it? And he said, oh, yes. And I can give you another one. Now? Yes. And he said, wait 2 minutes. And then he gave me the card, a new card. And I said, do I need to cancel the other one? No. And I was so happy. Wow, this is magnificent. They have a printer there and blah, blah, blah. So I left and I went into my meeting. I was a meeting and I was 1 minute late because I had to stop and I had that problem. And then before I sat to enter into another space, I thought, oh, now I have to just go and solve that. And as soon as I had that thought, another Iris came and said, oh, Iris, that's an old lady thought. Because what is the problem of getting into my computer and check if anybody took money? You know, it's just, and if at the end it took me 5 minutes to see that nothing had happened. The debit card was lost, nobody used it, it's already a new number, no problem. But in one instant, I don't know if it was 2 seconds, I had that thought that, and basically when you have a life that is calm and you don't have conflicts, little things could be irritants because you live in such a nice space, a nice mental space. So anyway, with that, I had the other one. And I'm having more of those, like something that emerges, and then I have another Iris making a comment. Happily is with humor and kindness. Oh, Iris, you are now talking like an old lady. Oh, what a big problem.
That's funny.
Yes.
Good one.
That's cool. And I don't mean to drag this out, but I just wanted to quickly, talking to other people is like, that's a great example, of course, because, you know, you interact with something and then it changes in your perspective and then it gives you a new perspective, right? So obviously humans are so dynamic that always happens, but with writing, I think it's so interesting because you're the one that wrote it down, right? And you write down this thing and then you look at it, you read it again, and it's like, it's completely different from what you thought while writing it. So I thought that was super interesting. So I was trying to think of more examples. And one that came to me was like painting, right? When you paint something, it turns into something else, you make a mistake, whatever, you know? I don't know. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like the perspective.
Yeah. And just, you know, I like the phrase from mindfulness meditation teacher, John Kabat-Zinn, catching yourself in the act. That's what being mindful does to you, noticing. I was reading an article on the on a magazine, a nice opinion magazine that I read, and I was reading, and suddenly I am like, oh, this lady's losing the plot. She shouldn't have brought this. So I was reading and enjoying the article at the same time making comments. And then I was going to stop because I said, oh, this is a bad writer, one. Two, the editors were in a rush to publish this article and didn't do enough editing. But I'm going to finish because it was a very, very moving story. And then when I finished the article, the woman had 2 Pulitzer Prizes.
Wow.
So I am like,
Yes.
all right, Iris. So it's like noticing that I have developed this critical eye, and I'm criticizing somebody writing in one of my favorite newspapers or magazines, and who has been recognized. So now when I criticize my own writing, I'm going to be very kind and gentle with myself. So that's the type of a lesson that you continue while you are alive and not enlightened, Daniel, because I'm not enlightened. Those people, I don't know what is that they have. You use the R.E.A.L method for that. Okay. Thank you. See you soon.
Okay. Bye.